A scream tore through the parking lot. A man's voice. Loud, ugly, full of rage. A pregnant woman flinched and pressed her back against a minivan. His thick finger jabbed an inch from her face. Spit flew from his mouth. She tried to step around him, and he slammed his open palm against the van right beside her head. She froze. Both her hands went straight to her belly. Then a heavy boot hit the pavement behind him. Slow. Deliberate. A man stepped out from between two parked trucks. Big. Thick neck. Gray beard. A leather vest with faded patches sewn down the front. He didn't shout. He didn't run. He just walked. The screaming man didn't see him yet. The pregnant woman did. Her name was Hannah. What that biker did in the next 12 seconds left a whole parking lot dead silent. Stay with me on this one. Now here's how she ended up there. Hannah was 32 weeks along. Her first baby. A boy. She had picked out the name 3 months earlier and hadn't told anyone, not even her mother. The baby kicked when she ate strawberries. He kicked when she laughed. He kicked when her husband came home angry, which had been happening more and more. Her husband's name was Brent. He hadn't always been like this. That's what she kept telling herself. Believe me, that's what every woman in her position tells herself. The truth was simpler. He had always been like this. The pregnancy just gave him more to be angry about. The grocery bill. The doctor bills. The slow walk she had to use now because her hips ached. He timed her trips into stores. 11 minutes was fine. 16 was a problem. 20 was a fight. That afternoon, she had been inside for 23. She came out pushing a cart with 2 bags. Milk. Bread. A box of cereal she liked because the baby liked it too. He kicked every time she ate it. She was thinking about that little kick when she saw Brent's face through the windshield of his pickup, and her stomach went cold. He was already out of the truck before she reached it. The yelling started in the cart aisle. By the time she got the bags into the back seat, he had her trapped against the side of the minivan parked next to them. Not his vehicle. Some stranger's van. He wanted her boxed in. He wanted other people to see her boxed in. The shame was the punishment. The fist was just the exclamation point. 2 rows over, between a black F-250 and a silver Tundra, a man named Frank Delaney was loading a 50-pound bag of dog food into the saddlebag of his motorcycle. Frank was 62 years old. 6'1", 240 pounds. He kept his hair trimmed close because it had been trimmed close for 40 years, and he saw no reason to change. His beard was gray. His hands were thick and scarred. He had 2 tours in Iraq behind him, and 1 knee that didn't work right in cold weather. He wasn't looking for trouble. He was looking forward to a quiet ride home. His wife Linda had a pot roast in the slow cooker. The dog needed feeding. He had a leak in the garage roof he was planning to look at after dinner. Then he heard the scream. Now here's the thing about most people. When they hear a scream in a parking lot, they freeze for a second. Their brain has to process. Was that real? Was it a kid? Was it a fight? They hesitate. Frank didn't hesitate. 40 years of training had carved hesitation right out of him. The second the sound hit his ears, his head was already turning toward it. 2 seconds after that, he had read the whole picture. The pregnant woman with her back against the van. The angry man with his palm on the metal beside her head. The way her hands went to her belly. Nobody moving. A woman with a stroller pretending to dig in her purse. A teenage boy walking faster toward his car. 3 people watching from inside the store windows like it was a TV show. Frank closed the saddlebag. Quiet. He didn't slam it. He didn't make a sound. He stepped out from between the two trucks. He didn't run. Running would have triggered the screaming man's fight or flight. Frank didn't want either. He wanted his full attention. So he walked. Heavy boots on asphalt. Steady pace. Hands loose at his sides. His vest had 3 patches sewn down the front. The top one read Marine. The middle one was a Bible verse. The bottom one was a small white cross with the name Linda stitched underneath in red thread. Hannah saw him first. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know what he was about to do. But something in the way he walked made her shoulders drop a quarter of an inch. The first time she had relaxed any part of her body in 23 minutes. Brent didn't see him yet. Brent was busy. Brent was telling Hannah, loud in detail, what kind of stupid, lazy waste of money she was. Brent was so wrapped up in his own voice that he didn't notice the parking lot had gone quiet around him. That was Frank's window. And he took it. Ma'am. One word. Low. Steady. Aimed past Brent's shoulder, straight at Hannah. Brent froze mid-sentence. His head whipped around. Frank was already 6 feet behind him and closing. You good, ma'am? Frank said. Same low tone. Like a man asking the time. Hannah's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Brent recovered fast. His face went from confusion to insult in half a second. He stepped away from the van and turned to face Frank full on. He was a big man too. 6 feet even. Maybe 220. Younger than Frank by 20 years. He had the kind of build a man gets from drinking beer and lifting things at a warehouse. Strong but soft underneath. Mind your own business, old man, Brent said. Frank kept walking. Slow. He was 4 feet away now. He stopped. She's pregnant, Frank said. She's my wife. That's not what I asked. I didn't hear you ask anything. Frank looked at Hannah again. Just at her. Ma'am. Are you safe? She started to nod. Then she shook her head. Just once. A tiny shake. She didn't even know she had done it until it was done. That was all Frank needed. Brent saw the shake too. And Brent decided that was the moment to make a mistake. He stepped forward and shoved. Both palms straight into Frank's chest. The kind of shove a man does when he wants to start a fight without actually throwing the first punch. Brent expected one of 2 things. Either Frank would stumble back, embarrassed, and walk away. Or Frank would shove back and Brent could swing. Neither happened. Frank didn't move. His chest absorbed the shove like a wall. His feet didn't shift. The only thing that moved was his right hand, which came up calm and easy and wrapped around Brent's left wrist before Brent could pull it back. Now here's where it turned. Frank rotated Brent's wrist. Not hard. Just a precise quarter turn that put the joint at an angle the joint did not want to be at. Brent's whole arm went sideways. Brent's whole body had to follow his arm or his shoulder was coming out of the socket. Brent followed his arm. Frank walked him. 3 steps. 4. Like a man walking a dog that didn't want to go. Brent's mouth was open, but no sound was coming out. Pain has a way of stealing the voice before it steals anything else. Frank set him down. That's the only word for it. He didn't throw him. He didn't slam him. He bent at the knees, lowered Brent face down onto the asphalt next to the rear tire of the F-150, and put one knee in the small of Brent's back. Light pressure. Just enough to keep him there. The whole thing took 11 seconds. The parking lot stayed dead silent. Frank looked up. He found the woman with the stroller, who had stopped pretending to dig in her purse. Ma'am, he said. Could you call the police, please? She nodded. She had her phone out before he finished the sentence. Frank looked back down at Brent. You're going to lay right there until they show up. You understand me? Brent said something into the asphalt. Frank didn't ask him to repeat it. Then Frank stood up. Slow. He kept one boot loose against Brent's shoulder, ready to put weight on it if Brent moved. He didn't expect Brent to move. Brent was breathing into the ground. Brent was done. Frank turned to Hannah. She was still pressed against the side of the minivan. Her hands were still on her belly. Her chest was moving fast. Too fast. Frank knew what that breathing looked like. He had seen it on men in field hospitals. It was the breathing of a person about to drop. Ma'am, he said. Soft now. The voice had changed completely. Hannah, that your name? She nodded. Hannah, I need you to come over here and sit down. Slow steps. 3 feet. Right here on this curb. You with me? She moved. 1 foot, then the other. Frank stayed where he was, close enough to catch her, far enough not to crowd her. She made it to the curb. She sat. Her hands stayed on her belly. Don't get up, Frank said. Just breathe. He walked the 4 steps back to his motorcycle, watching Brent the whole way. He opened the saddlebag he had just closed. He pulled out a stainless steel water bottle. He came back. He cracked the seal and held it out. Cold, he said. Drink small. Hannah took it. Her hand was shaking so hard the water sloshed against the rim. She got a sip down. Then another. Frank crouched in front of her. He kept his body angled so he could still see Brent on the ground. His face changed. The hard set of the jaw softened around the eyes. He looked just for a second like somebody's grandfather. You're all right, he said. You and the baby. Police are coming. He's not getting up. You hear me? He is not getting up. Hannah nodded. Tears were finally coming. The kind of tears that only come when the danger has passed. She didn't even sob. They just rolled. In the distance, a siren started up. 2 miles out, maybe 3. Heading their way. Brent on the asphalt had gone limp. Not unconscious. Just defeated. He wasn't talking anymore. He wasn't trying to get up. He was a man whose entire identity had just been taken apart in front of his pregnant wife, and a parking lot full of strangers in less than 15 seconds. The woman with the stroller had moved closer. She was talking to the dispatcher. 2 other people had come out of the store. One of them was the manager. The teenage boy was filming on his phone. It was over. That's what Hannah thought. That's what the woman with the stroller thought. That's what the manager thought. Frank thought something different. He was watching Brent's right hand. Slow. Half an inch at a time. Creeping toward the open driver's door of the F-150. Now here's where it changed. A man in Brent's position has 2 choices. He can stay down and wait for the police and hope the charges are minor and his life only partly comes apart. Or he can do something stupid. Brent chose stupid. His right hand twitched. His knees came up under him. And he lunged. He didn't lunge at Frank. He lunged for the open truck door. Frank's boot was on his shoulder, but Brent had 30 pounds of forward momentum and a flat hand on the asphalt for leverage. He got out from under the boot. He scrambled. 2 seconds, maybe 3, and he was inside the cab of the F-150, on his belly across the bench seat, his right arm jammed under the driver's seat. Frank moved. He didn't run. He covered ground. There's a difference. Running is for emergencies you didn't see coming. Covering ground is for emergencies, you did. Frank had seen this one coming the second he watched Brent's hand creep across the asphalt. 3 steps and he was at the door of the truck. 2 more and he was between Hannah on the curb and the truck cab. He pivoted. He put his back to Hannah. He squared his shoulders. He filled the gap. Brent came out of the cab with a pistol in his hand. It was a 1911. Old. Stainless. The kind of gun a certain type of man carries because he wants the gun to say something about him. Brent had it pointed at the asphalt. He was breathing through his teeth. His face was the color of brick. His eyes were not seeing right. "Get out of the way," Brent said. The voice was different now. It wasn't the loud yelling voice. It was thinner, higher, the voice of a man who had crossed a line he couldn't uncross and now had to find a reason for crossing it. Frank didn't move. "Brent," Frank said. "Come." Same low tone he had used at the start. He had picked the name off Hannah's lips when she said it earlier. "Brent." "Set it down. Get out of the way." "I'm not going to do that." Behind Frank, Hannah was making a sound. Not crying. Something smaller. The sound a person makes when they realize they are watching the worst thing they have ever seen, and they don't yet know which part of it they are about to remember forever. The siren was closer. Less than a mile out now. Frank's hands were still loose at his sides. He had not raised them. He had not taken a fighting stance. He was just standing there, big and gray and calm, between a pregnant woman and a man with a gun. If you are still with me, hit that subscribe button. Stories like Frank's don't get told because nobody bothers to tell them. The algorithm only sends these your way when enough of you stop and tap. So tap. And then we'll keep going. Because the next 30 seconds are the part Hannah will tell her son about for the rest of her life. Brent took a step forward. The pistol came up. Not all the way. Halfway. The barrel was pointed at Frank's stomach now. "You don't know me," Brent said. "You don't know anything about me. You don't know what she's been doing. You don't know what she's been doing to me." "That's right," Frank said. "I don't. She's been spending my money. Lying to me. About everything. About the baby. The baby isn't even." "Brent, you don't know. Brent, look at me." Brent looked at him. "Whatever's true," Frank said, "is true. Putting a bullet in her doesn't change any of it. Putting a bullet in me doesn't either. It just changes who you are tomorrow. Right now, you are a man who yelled at his wife in a parking lot. That's a small thing. That's a fixable thing. Pull that trigger and tomorrow you are something else. Forever." Brent's hand was shaking. The barrel was bouncing in small circles. "I don't care," Brent said. But he said it like a man trying to convince himself, which is not the same as a man who doesn't care. The siren turned the corner. 1 block out. Frank took 1 step forward. Just one. His boot scraped on the asphalt. The pistol stayed where it was. "Brent, look at my vest." Brent's eyes flicked down. The patches. The cross. The name Linda in red thread. "My wife's name is Linda," Frank said. "She's at home right now. She's making me a pot roast. I had a son. He didn't make it home from his second deployment. So I know exactly what it costs to lose somebody. I know what you'll cost yourself if you do this. And I am telling you, son, I am telling you right now, you don't want to find out." Brent's chin started to shake. The pistol stayed up, but the elbow had gone soft. The siren was right there. 1/4 mile out. The whoop of it bouncing off the storefront. "Set it down, Brent." "I..." "Set it down on the seat." "I..." "Now." Brent didn't set it down, but his elbow dropped another inch. The barrel was now pointed at the ground between them. Not at Frank, not at Hannah, at the asphalt. That was the gap Frank had been waiting for. Now here's the thing about a man who has trained for decades. He doesn't react to what's happening. He reacts to what's about to happen. Frank had read Brent's elbow before Brent knew his elbow was reading him. Frank moved. It was not fast in the way movies are fast. It was fast in the way an old carpenter drives a nail. One motion. No wasted angle. His left hand came up and cupped the top of the slide. His right hand pivoted under and caught Brent's wrist from the inside. He twisted Brent's wrist away from his own body and toward Brent's. The pistol's muzzle, in less than half a second, was pointed at the dirt patch beside the truck tire. Frank's thumb came up over the hammer. His index finger slid behind the trigger. If Brent had pulled, he would have pulled against Frank's finger and the trigger wouldn't have moved. Brent didn't pull. Brent's hand had gone to noodles. Frank stripped the gun. Easy. Like taking a candy bar from a tired child. The 1911 came out of Brent's grip and into Frank's left hand. Frank stepped back one pace. He kept his eyes on Brent. With his right thumb, he hit the magazine release. The mag dropped out and clattered onto the asphalt. Frank racked the slide. A live round arced into the air, caught the sun for half a second, and bounced once before rolling under the truck. The chamber was empty. The gun was empty. Frank flipped it in his hand and held it by the slide, barrel down, away from everybody. He put one boot on the magazine on the asphalt to keep it from going anywhere. The whole disarm took 2.5 seconds. The cruiser came around the corner. Brent went to his knees. Not because anybody told him to. Because his knees gave out. His face went into his hands. He was making a sound that wasn't crying and wasn't speech. It was the sound a man makes when he understands, with his whole body, what he almost did. The cruiser stopped 20 feet away. 2 officers came out, hands on their holsters, eyes on Frank. "Sir, drop the weapon." Frank already had the pistol set down on the hood of the truck, slide back, magazine on the asphalt under his boot. He had stepped back from it. His hands were up, fingers spread, palms out. "Pistols clear," he said. "Rounds under the truck. Magazines under my boot." The man on his knees there pulled it on his pregnant wife. "There's about 15 witnesses, including a kid with a cell phone. Take your time." The officers moved. One went to Brent. The other went to the pistol. The kid with the phone came forward and started talking, saying everything he had filmed, showing them the screen. The woman with the stroller came forward too. The store manager. The teenage boy from earlier. They all started talking at once, but they were all saying the same thing. Hannah on the curb was bent forward. Her hands had come off her belly. Her hands were on her thighs. She was making a low, drawn sound through her teeth. Frank saw it and crossed to her in 3 steps. "Hannah," he said. "Hannah, look at me." She looked up. Her face was wet. Her lips were pale. "My water," she said. "Okay. My water just broke." "Okay." "Okay." Frank turned to the closer officer without raising his voice. "She needs an ambulance. Pregnant. 8 months. Just had a gun pointed at her, basically. She's going into shock or going into labor or both." The officer was already on his radio. Frank crouched in front of Hannah again. Same crouch as before. Same soft eyes. He reached out and took her left hand. He didn't say anything. He just held her hand. His was thick and warm and steady. Hers was small and cold and shaking. 8 weeks early, she said. He's 8 weeks early. Babies come when they come, Frank said. Doctors are good. You're going to a hospital. I'm staying with you until somebody you love gets there. You hear me? You're not going to be alone in that ambulance. You don't even know me. I know you, Frank said. I knew you the second I heard that scream. Squeeze my hand. She squeezed. Harder. She squeezed harder. Good. Every time it hurts, you squeeze. That's all you've got to do. 2 more cruisers had pulled up. An ambulance turned the corner 2 minutes later. The paramedics came out fast. They got Hannah onto a gurney. Frank walked beside her, her hand still in his. At the back of the ambulance, the lead paramedic looked at him. Family. Frank looked at Hannah. Hannah looked at the paramedic. He's family, Hannah said. Frank climbed in. The doors shut. The siren started up. Behind them, in the parking lot, 2 officers were lifting Brent into the back of a cruiser. Brent was not resisting. Brent's face was the face of a man who had finally been told a truth he had been running from his whole life. He sat down. The door closed. The cruiser pulled away. The 1911 went into an evidence bag. The magazine went into another. The live round was retrieved from under the truck. The teenage boy's video was on the phones of 3 different officers within the hour. By that night, it was on Hannah's mother's phone, and her sister's phone, and a state attorney's phone, and a victim's advocate's phone, and finally on television. But all of that was later. Right then, at 5:40 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, an old Marine sat in the back of an ambulance with a young woman he had never met before, holding her hand, and he didn't let go. The hospital was 12 minutes away. Hannah talked the whole way. She didn't know why she was talking. She told Frank her son's name, the one she had picked 3 months ago and never told anyone. It was Samuel, after her grandfather. Her grandfather had been a kind man. He had worked at a hardware store. He had let her ride on the back of his pickup when she was small. Frank listened. He nodded. He squeezed her hand back when she squeezed his. At the hospital, they took her in fast. Frank sat in the waiting room. He still had his vest on. He still had dog food residue on his hands from the saddlebag. He pulled out his phone and called Linda. I'm going to be late for the pot roast, he said. She didn't ask why. She heard it in his voice. She just said, how late? Few hours. Maybe more. There's a girl here. She's having a baby. She doesn't have anybody yet. Then you stay, Linda said. I'll put the roast in the fridge. It keeps. He hung up. He sat. He didn't pick up a magazine. He didn't look at his phone. He just sat, big and gray, in a plastic chair, with his boots on the linoleum and his hands on his knees, and he waited. Hannah's mother arrived an hour later. She came running through the sliding doors with her purse banging against her hip. She saw Frank in the waiting room. She didn't know who he was. She walked up to him anyway, because something in her told her she should. Are you the one? She said. I'm the one who was there, Frank said. She sat down next to him. She started crying. Frank didn't say anything. He just put one hand lightly on top of her hand. Hannah's sister got there 20 minutes after that. The victim's advocate showed up. A detective came to take Frank's statement. Frank gave it short and clean. He didn't embellish. He didn't make himself sound brave. He said what happened and stopped. Samuel was born at 9:14 that night. He was small, 4 pounds 3 ounces. He had to go to the NICU. But he was breathing on his own. His lungs were stronger than the doctors expected. He was going to make it. A nurse came out and told Hannah's mother first. Then she looked at Frank. She wants to see you. Frank stood up. His knee popped. He followed the nurse down the hall. Hannah was in the bed, exhausted. Her hair stuck to her forehead, an IV in her arm. She was alone in the room. The nurse held the door and stepped out. Frank stood at the foot of the bed. "Hey," he said. "Hey," Hannah said. She held out her hand. He came up beside her and took it. "They said you stayed. I said I would. You don't even know me. I told you. I knew you the second I heard that scream." She was quiet for a long minute. Then she said, "How did you know? How did you know exactly what to do? Every step. Every word." "How?" Frank looked at the wall. Then at her. "I was 8 years old," he said. "I lived in a small house in Ohio. My father came home one night drunk and angry the way Brent was angry today. He had my mother against the kitchen wall the way you were against that minivan. I was at the screen door watching. I didn't know what to do. I was 8. He paused. A neighbor came across the yard. Big man. Worked at the foundry. He didn't shout at my father. He didn't fight him. He just walked in and put my father against the wall the same way my father had been doing to my mother, and he held him there, and he said, 'You're done in this house, Bill. You are done,' and my father was. He left that night. He never came back." Hannah's eyes were full. "That neighbor's name was Marcus," Frank said. "I never saw him again after I turned 12. We moved. I never got to thank him. I don't know if he ever knew what he did. I don't know if he knew he was the only reason I grew up to be the kind of man who could walk across a parking lot today instead of the kind of man who couldn't. But he was." He squeezed her hand. "What happened to you today is not what your son is going to remember. What your son is going to remember is the part where his mama got out of it. And the part where she didn't go back. You're not going back. Are you, Hannah?" She shook her head. "Slow. Sure. Good," Frank said. "Good." He let go of her hand. He took something out of his vest pocket. A small metal coin. The kind a Marine carries. He set it on the table beside her bed. "For Samuel. When he's old enough." He walked to the door. "Frank," Hannah said. He turned. "Thank you." He nodded. Just once. Then he walked out. The parking lot, when he got back to his motorcycle near midnight, was empty and quiet. The F-150 had been towed. The yellow tape was gone. There was nothing left of what had happened that afternoon. Nothing visible. Nothing you could point to and say, "Here, this is where it was." But somewhere across town, in a room with a small clear bassinet, a 4-pound baby boy was breathing on his own. And his mother was sleeping for the first time in years, without listening for the sound of a key in the door. Frank put on his helmet. He started the bike. He rode home. Linda was awake when he got there. The pot roast was in the fridge. She heated him a plate. He ate at the kitchen table without saying much. When he was done, she put her hand on his. "Long day," she said. "Yeah. Worth it." He thought about it. "Yeah," he said. "Worth it."